everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I am your host, Chris. And as you can see, like, if you're watching the Skype version or the video version, right underneath me, or right next to underneath me, or to the side there is Ian
Wherever
Maphet. Hey, Ian, how's it going?
Just living a life of fun and adventure.
Yeah, there you go. Do you have your own, quote-unquote, Magnificent Seven?
No, I haven't gone rescuing any villages lately, so just me.
You don't even have a group of Magnificent Seven friends, maybe, that you hang out?
Well, I mean, maybe. Might be able to count, well, we're the Magnificent Five, so.
Well, there we go. Maybe for the 100th episode, we'll play the Magnificent Seven theme, but we'll call it the Magnificent Five.
There we go.
Now, if a certain person, who I will not name, had stuck around, we would have been 6. But that person left a long time ago, so it's technically his fault. Not mentioning any names. Sorry. Anyway, I should. Anyway, folks. Tonight's movie review is the new remake for The Magnificent Seven. It stars Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt.
Sir, I have a proposition. We're decent people being driven from our homes. Slaughtered in cold blood.
So you seek revenge?
I seek righteousness. But I'll take revenge.
Took a job looking for some men to join me. Is it difficult? Impossible. How many you got so far? You and me?
Quite a batch of strays.
This is not going to end well. God dang it, I'm good. How many men you say?
What you just saw was the trailer for The Magnificent Seven. It was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who you may remember as the director of films like Training Day and King Arthur, and I think even the recent Denzel Washington film, The Equalizer, which I think you saw that film, and I think you were a pretty big fan of that one.
Yeah, I liked it. I think Denzel is always a stellar actor. It's hard to go wrong with Denzel. And The Equalizer was just a good old-fashioned beating up the bad guys film. So
I've yet to see that one, so I might check that one out. I've heard pretty good things about that one. But now this one is things have turned around. This is his first Western. Surprisingly, after many years of being in the industry, he has done a wide variety of films, such as dramas, comedies. He's done war epics, such as Glory, gangster movies like American Gangster, that was directed by Ridley Scott. But yeah, so this is the remake. Actually, what is it? Technically, a remake of the second remake of the original movie, but
remake.
What did I say?
No, you said remake. I'm giving the air quotes.
Okay, like
remake.
But also it's also the third retelling of the Kurosawa film. But I guess we'll start right there. Ian, what was your relationship with the other films? You know, the original Magnificent Seven, which I'm proud to hold up right here, and the Seven Samurai, Kurosawa's masterpiece. Great film, by the way.
I am ashamed to admit it. I've never seen the Seven Samurai. I know, like all those film classes, somehow that never got shoehorned in. I've seen clips, but never saw that one. And I also had not seen the Magnificent Seven before the 1960 version. So I just got up on that today. I thought I'd seen it, but I was wrong.
Okay. What did you think of it?
I mean, I enjoyed it. It was interesting, contrasting the new film and the old one. Mm-hmm. And just how many, like, you can see the cultural differences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That part was very fascinating.
Yeah, different time, different place. Just different.
Yes.
Just the Hollywood mindset and the model was very different from those two. From these, the huge gap between them is just so vastly different. I'm a huge fan of both movies. I love, and I think it's pretty common that people in America were exposed to the Magnificent Seven first before seeing the Seven Samurai. Both movies, which I love. I mean, the Magnificent Seven. I ate that movie when I was a kid. I was obsessed with that movie. Heck, you've got Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Coburn. These were, like, prior to seeing this film, I had seen a lot of those guys in, Yul Brynner, like The King and I, a lot of the other guys in, like, all these great westerns. So to see them together in this type of film, it was great. The star power.
They're the massive acting heavyweights of that time.
Oh yeah, and I just can't help but list. I love Steve McQueen in that movie. He's so great, and he just has a presence to him that's just so great. And Seven Samurai is just it is a movie that one should see at least once in their lifetime. I've seen it at least like 3-4 times, something like that. It's a long movie. It's a commitment. It's like it's a 4.5 hour long movie. So, but I mean, the movie is just so breathtaking to watch, and the black and white cinematography is astonishing, and just the atmospheric tone and the themes of that film just really stand out. Even today, for both films, they're both movies about, oppression and, releasing, fighting against, tyranny and all that stuff. It's a very, powerful, universal message. But that, brings us, over, 50 years later, to this one, The Magnificent Seven. Ian, what did you think of the remake?
I enjoyed it. Let me take a look at my notes. I wrote some of my thoughts on it down. I just came out of it going, oh yeah, that was a lot of action. I felt like the storyline was a little disjointed. Like they might have been trying to squeeze too much into 2 hours. And there was some of the dialogue that was just a little bit, what were you trying to do there? Are there some deleted scenes that we need to see? And it felt like, well, we can get into this later, but I don't know. Some of the acting wasn't quite what it should have been, but overall, I enjoyed it. It was a good old fashioned Western shootout. Mm-hmm. Just like, it's a modern film. It's got to be quick, fast, nonstop, and that's kind of what it was. Kind of a modern take on the old school westerns. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it as well in the movie theater. Like when I went to go see it, one thing that surprised me the most was how packed the theater was. Actually, there was actually quite a lot of people, young and old people. So there was definitely, I think the new generation, I think, was definitely drawn more to the Chris Pratt aspect.
Oh yes, definitely. That was a good move on somebody's part, bringing Chris Pratt in.
Yeah, and I think he's helping, and Denzel as well. I think he still has that box office appeal as well. But I really enjoyed myself. I thought it was a good time at the movies. I didn't think it was a waste of time. It's definitely a movie that I would not recommend, for young children to go see. It's got some language and some pretty. It's actually slightly a little bit more darker than the original.
Definitely.
Film. Now, however, that being said, as much as I enjoyed seeing the movie, it is a film that I feel like it lacks the depth that the Seven Samurai and the original film, the original Magnificent Seven film had. I think it's lacking some of that, the message and the ideas that made that first film. This one, I think this one is a perfect example of diversity, just for the sake of diversity, and I know that's people can be so up in arms about that whole debate. I mean, I don't, if the role calls for somebody that's Mexican and it's like, okay, yeah, get that person, if the role calls for it, or better yet, get somebody that is going to do a darn good job. Don't be so focused about like getting a person just because you want to represent that person on screen. Get the person that is going to do a good job. Not necessarily, let's put that person in there because they're the representation of my race or something like that. I know that's a very muddled conversation. I know that's one that's actually been highly debated in recently, and I know we haven't really addressed that lately. But do you want to kind of share thoughts on the diversity issue?
Well, I think I kind of had the same thoughts about a quarter of the way through. Once the whole Magnificent Seven started coming together, it's like, okay, they're just cramming as many different people in as they can. Now, that being said, I think, it's that modern ideology kind of thing. And while in some films it's annoying and it pulls you out of the film, in this one, it didn't bother me as much.
Okay. Because
I feel like they were written in a way that it wasn't so much in your face as some other films have been. I mean, yeah, at first it was like, okay, I see what they're doing. And then the story kept going and I was just on the edge of my seat. I was enjoying the story. So it stuck out, but not long enough to pull back on that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess we'll just go ahead and kind of talk about the big ensemble, the title, the title ensemble. I mean, the Magnificent Seven themselves. I mean, I have to give a lot of praise for Washington, Pratt, and Ethan Hawke. I mean, I really love Ethan Hawke whenever I get a chance to see him in the movies. I mean, he's and actually, my favorite, surprisingly, of the seven was Byung-Hun Lee, who played Billy Rocks, the knife guy, who was kind of the what I liked about him was that he was the combination of the James Coburn character and also the fact that he was Asian, that he was an Oriental guy, and that was kind of homaging the Seven Samurai film. I actually got that immediately. I'm like, so there were some little clever little nods to both films, which I really liked. And I really loved Byung-Hun Lee in that role, and I thought he actually stole the show. I really I thought he gave the show stealing performance in the whole film. I mean,
he did a very, very good job, and like you said, I really enjoyed his character. That was a good change to the whole story. I think they did that very well.
Yeah, and the weird thing was that you see him doing the whole thing with the knives and all that stuff. I mean, that may be a little bit out there, but I wasn't like scratching my head like, why is this in here? No, it actually worked for who the character was, and the fact that they gave him like a whole thing of knives as defense mechanisms as well as a gun. But I thought he was great. I thought he was absolutely great in the role. But yeah, I mean, I thought Denzel, Pratt, and Hawke, they really lent the film a certain gravity. Like they stepped it up a notch with their star power in the film, and
definitely
it was a very interesting, like, you're just drawn to them immediately. And I guess it's just because, one, they're just great actors in their own right, but I have to be kind of honest that the present that those four brought, I felt was kind of lacking with Vasquez, the Mexican outlaw, Red Harvest, the Comanche warrior, and I know he got the huge standing ovation at my theater, but I thought Vincent D'Onofrio's Jack Horn was kind of a little bit lacking. I mean, he kind of earned his spurs at the end of the film slightly, but I don't know. Like, he was a person that could have give or take, actually. I mean, what did you think of the ensemble, and who stood out to you and who kind of was lacking?
Well, I can see what they were doing. They were putting out Denzel, Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke. You know, they were kind of put them out there because that's the star power, and we're not really that familiar with the other guys as much. So I see what they were doing there. I don't know. I feel like they paid just enough attention, because if you tried to shoehorn in everybody's backstory, you know, it'd be a long movie. So I think they gave it just enough time for each character to really do their thing. I kind of enjoyed Red Harvest. I think he was a little bit of at times he kind of played the comedic relief a few times, and just kind of was that supporting role that kind of filled in what was lacking in the others. So I don't know. I mean, I thought they did a fairly good job. Again, I think a few of them, the actors, didn't feel just super comfortable in that role.
Yeah, I remember I got that note right there. Who did you feel like just didn't feel comfortable?
Oddly enough, I was really looking forward to Chris Pratt in this. There were times at which I think he was kind of unsure where he was going with his character. Like, the line that really stuck out to me was like something about the world's best lover or something like that. Okay, and it just that was just kind of like, what?
Improvised,
where did that? Yeah, or just maybe it was in the script, and it was just kind of like he was maybe thinking, where the heck is this coming from? But it just felt it was one of those awkward moments that almost pulled you out of the movie. And you know, the Jack Horn character, it did feel, I don't know, maybe he was a little bit just like glossed over. And so by the time it got to his final scene, it was kind of like,
yeah.
I mean,
I think I was actually kind of shocked in the moment. I mean, I don't want to go into spoilers quite yet, because I don't know. I felt like with like Vasquez, the Mexican outlaw. One, I don't know who this guy. I didn't know who that guy was, so he was kind of lacking that presence that the three big actors were kind of bringing. I don't know, and I felt like if you had mixed it up with somebody else, like an Antonio Banderas or somebody else for that matter, like I felt like I would have gotten, like, you could have had the same character beats, but if you had gotten somebody else with a little bit more credibility, like an Antonio Banderas, I think I would have been a little bit more invested with his character. I think that's kind of where the hinge really lies with a lot of these characters, is that the characters that work for me, at least for me, were those who had a little bit more, had a gravitas to them. and I think D'Onofrio had that. It just felt. I think he just felt kind of the most out of place. Maybe it's because in my mind I'm always thinking like when I look at the original movies. I mean, you've got like strapping young men, in those type of roles. I mean, you've got Vaughn, Coburn, Dexter, Buchholz, Coburn, McQuinn. So when you're doing a movie like this, it's like who are you gonna get to kind of fit that striping, masculinity? And D'Onofrio, who's a great actor in his own right. I don't know. He didn't feel like he belonged in the group. Oddly enough, especially with this type of film. Now he was great, but I don't know. Just something about him kind of felt a little bit out of place.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying. Especially right at the start when he kind of had the high pitched voice, and you're like, "What? Wait, what?"
Yeah.
That was a little weird. And then with Vasquez, I don't know. I think a big name like Antonio Banderas would have pulled from the story.
Really? Okay.
And I felt like Manuel Garcia Ruffo's. I felt like his chemistry with Chris Pratt was actually pretty solid. I kind of liked the back and forth they had during the film.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed that because it's that camaraderie thing that the original Magnificent Seven kind of brought forth.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Again, I think Jack Horn felt a little shoehorned in. I kind of agree with you on that like he did feel a little out of place. So that it, like when his final scene came, it was like, okay, that sucks, but I'm not just like totally torn up over it.
Yeah. I mean, like when you have when you look at the original cast, and where I was going to go with that, I think you kind of mentioned earlier that you feel like this film doesn't really give the characters enough time to kind of develop. I look at the original movie, and you don't really get enough of a sense of who these characters are. In the original movies, like like the Robert Vaughn character, you get a sense that he's a Civil War deserter. Possibly, you're still not too certain of who he is. Even Buchholz or Chico, for that matter, you get the you find out that he's a farmer. He was a peasant. And then he. But for the most part, these characters, there's an instant likability with these characters. Here, you're kind of trying to figure them out and figure, if you like them or not. I think it's kind of lacking. I think this film kind of lacks that hook that the original movie may have had, actually, in my opinion. So
I mean, I can see what you're saying, but you have to think about it. You're also coming from seeing the old one before, and having Yul Brynner and those guys. Anyone who isn't familiar with those are probably going to feel a lot differently about the newer film, because I mean, you still got Denzel, Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke, Peter Sarsgaard. Those are names that everyone's familiar with. So I felt like for the main characters there was just enough backstory.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a whole drawn out thing. It was just kind of like these lines that were thrown in, in a timely manner that was just like, oh, okay, that's his motivation.
Yeah.
I felt like the original Magnificent Seven, didn't do enough of that.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I think, I mean, we'll go ahead and just kind of go into something else right now. But yeah, you mentioned Peter Sarsgaard, or Sarsgaard, Skarsgård.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Look, I really like Peter Sarsgaard whenever I see him in anything. He plays a lot of bad guys. Here's the thing, though. You can't top Eli Wallach. I mean, Eli Wallach is like a genius. I mean, the man is like. He's so great in that movie. I mean, his Calvera. I mean, he's witty. He's charming. There's like a devilish, evil charm to him that you're just drawn to. Especially that whole scene where he's like, if God didn't want them shit, he would not have made them sheep. He just has that gravitas to him. Skarsgård. I thought his Bartholomew Bogue. I thought he at the very beginning was very good. Like the whole scene with him at the church, and then him putting the boy's hand into the jar and getting the dirt, and kind of telling them that, you're just dying for land. This is it. He's kind of like down. He's like cursing them in a way, and I thought he had a really good scene right there. And then the fact that he shot Matt Bomer, the white collar dude.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. Actually,
I thought Matt Bomer should have been one of the 7, actually, but that's.
I think he probably would have worked.
Yeah,
but I guess he's not big enough to get that role yet.
He's on White Collars. I think that's a pretty enough popular show. But anyway, there was no Chico character. That was one thing with this film. You didn't have the Chico character. But anyway, there was what was it? Yeah, I thought his first scene where he shoots Matt Bomer, and the scene when that Indian kills the lady, the woman. Oh my gosh, that I thought, although that was only done on him, on that Indian's part, I felt like that was like the pinnacle of where you saw the dark side. I don't think you really saw enough of his villainy throughout the rest of the film.
I don't know. I think I'd have to disagree with you on that one.
Okay.
Eli Wallach, of course, is a fantastic. What is he still alive?
No, he passed away, unfortunately.
Okay, he was a fantastic actor, and he did bring that like kind of charismatic bravado to his role in the original. But Peter Sarsgaard was just a creepy douchebag, and he filled in that part very well, where it wasn't just like. He wasn't this outgoing, charismatic guy. It was just like, I'm going to do my job no matter what or who gets in my way. And if you get in my way, I'm going to take you down. And, it's that quiet, determined evil that I feel like is more creepy and easier to hate, and therefore rejoice when he goes down, than the charismatic, buddy, I'm going to kill you anyway kind of thing. So I felt like Peter Sarsgaard did a good, because he's a good villain in pretty much everything he does. He really knows how to get in that that just quiet, determined, evil guy kind of thing. And I felt like he accomplished that in a very good way. Yeah. So that by the time you get to the end of the film and he's down on the floor crawling, you're like, yeah, that's right, tickets.
Yeah. No.
So, anyways, that's my take on it.
Yeah. No. I think with what he's given, for the most part, I thought he was good. I think the problem that I had with him was, again, as I mentioned, I don't think they really kind of showed enough of him as a presence. I mean, they played up the same way like the original film. He's right. He's coming back, he's arriving, etc. Yeah. His presence, he's near. There's definitely. Which I think that's of course following the original film, but I felt like I like the fact that you could tell that he was sick, and that I don't know, you don't know if he's dying from his sickness and that he's trying to trying to earn his place in history or mark his place in history, something like that. I always like that motivation. I like that idea. I just wish that they could have done a little bit more with it. Kind of just this power-hungry individual who wants to keep history to remember him in a significant way. I'm just trying to remember something else about him. I mean, I loved that him and Denzel actually had a past. I like that. I actually like that, and
yeah.
I like that he was someone that apparently hanged Denzel's mother and his 2 sisters, and so that gives them a connection to each other. And Washington is motive. You're not too sure if he wants to kill him at the end or if he's just trying to make a fool out of him. I kind of found that part, the whole church sequence, to be kind of complex. You don't know if he was. You don't know if Chisholm was going to deliver the final blow. Well, technically, Skarsgård was going to deliver the final blow, but
Yeah.
I thought he was. Actually, I'm not going to lie. I thought for one moment there, Washington was a goner.
I know, I did too, and I think that's what I loved about that ending. And that was some magnificent writing there. Because you really, in that point, you really don't know what's gonna happen. And I love that. I think Denzel did a very good job of portraying Chisholm as a conflicted character.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he wants to do good. He wants to not be the bad guy and not reduce himself to that level. But, you know, in that moment, he's just, everything's coming back and it's like, I'm going to kill this guy now.
Yeah.
So I thought that particular scene was fantastic.
Yeah, but I think what the payoff of that scene is really the Haley Bennett character, Emma Cullen, because she was now being brought full circle. In a significant way, because now you were seeing her story coming to an end, and that she was getting the final word, so to speak. You know, in that.
Yes. Yeah, and that was again a good bit of writing right there.
Yeah. By the way, I thought she was really good, Haley Bennett. I'm not familiar with this actress. I'm sure she's probably been on like television or something like that. I just don't watch a whole lot of TV. But
she hasn't been on much. She was obviously in The Equalizer, and she was in that Hardcore Henry thing, but I don't think she's been in much besides that.
Oh, Hardcore Henry, yeah, I've heard some really. What is it? Wasn't that like the first person like shooter movie or something like that?
Yeah, I was really interested in seeing it, but just didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that. I heard it was actually really, really good. But okay, one thing about Washington that I was pleasantly surprised by, but in a good way, they didn't do the whole Django Unchained thing with him. They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't, like, when he comes into town, which was a great entrance for his character, and he comes into the town, they don't use... The one thing that did shock me was that they didn't use the N-word at all. Not once throughout this movie. And I don't know if that was something that the director and Washington were very much like, we cannot do that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do the Quentin Tarantino thing.
Well, that's kind of anathema these days. That's something you just don't bring up.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering the current atmosphere, I can see why they didn't do that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if Washington was really like, no, I don't want to do that. I think now, what do you think, like, when he gets into that saloon, do you think the people are reacting to him because of his nationality? Or do you think they're reacting to him because they know who he is? That's the interesting thing about his first scene, because I don't know if it's one or the other.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was trying to figure out. I kind of feel like it's because they knew who he is, or they know who he is. They knew who he was, and so they knew his purpose, and they knew what he. Because you look at all the guys with guns; they're getting ready. They're cocking their pistols and their rifles, and they know what's coming. Because I imagine they know exactly who that bartender is. And apparently only the sheriff was ignorant of this. Or at least they knew what the bartender was capable of. And so this guy walks in and they're like, okay, something's about to go down. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That was my take on it. Yeah, it was a little ambivalent.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah. They didn't do that, which I kind of found nice, and I think it was kind of respectful as well. But it's a very ambiguous scene, and I think that's the interesting thing about it, Now, I think we'll go ahead and get into some spoilers right now. So, big spoilers. If you've seen the original movie, you know who dies. So we're gonna go ahead and spoil it right here, right now. The following characters that do die are Billy Rocks, Jack Horn, Goodnight Robot Cheeks or something like that.
Robichaux.
Robichaux. I think that's French, actually.
Yep.
And Josh Faraday, a.k.a. Chris Pratt.
Mm-hmm.
I was so shocked that they killed off Chris Pratt.
I'm not gonna lie, I was too.
That threw me
yeah.
through a loop. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, I almost had a squealing like a little girl moment in the theater when that happened. I was like, oh, they killed off Chris Pratt. Like, I mean, they did it masterfully. I thought it was totally a Chris Pratt moment. But yeah, that shocked me.
It kind of goes up against the whole, like, you know, like, you think this guy's a superhero, you know, like Guardians of the Galaxy or Jurassic Park. No, it was a huge 180, and and it was brutal too. I thought he was constantly getting, like, the first time he gets shot, I'm like, okay, he's going down. He's going down, but I knew there was going to be a trick up his sleeve. There had to be something.
Oh yeah. I love that line. I always get lucky with one-eyed jacks. Toss the dynamite. Like that was like, yes!
That was a send-off moment right there. But yeah, and apparently his guts are all splattered across that prairie right there. I would have thought they would have kept him at least alive for potentially a sequel. I don't know if this movie lends itself a sequel.
I kind of feel like it doesn't. They'll probably try to shoehorn one in anyway.
The problem is that you're kind of left with Denzel, and you're kind of left with the two less interesting members of the seven. So
yeah,
I thought Ethan Hawke's death was the most brutal.
Yeah,
like him and Billy Roxwood, but by the Gatling gun, which was great. I when they said Gatling gun, I'm like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
Watch out when the Gatling gun gets brought in. That was a great scene.
Oh, but when he gets shot from the church bell tower, oh man, the fact that he's riddled with bullets and he like crashes. He goes out the top and he rolls down. Oh my.
That was a brutal moment.
Wow. I still can get that out of my mind. The fact that I thought out of all of their deaths, that was like instantaneous. Wow.
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah. But we were kind of talking about Vincent D'Onofrio. Yes, Vincent D'Onofrio, Jack Horn, died, and I think he kind of died in confronting the appropriate character, the Indian bad guy. And then
that was kind of making a statement there.
Yeah, like it was kind of like this is the Native American versus the newcomer to the new world. It's kind of like an interesting parallel right there. Like what kind of statement did you see right there?
Well, it was kind of coming full circle. I feel like he was suspicious of the Indian at first, and they probably could have done a better job of clarifying this. Because remember when we first meet Jack Horn, Chisholm mentions turning in scalps and how you can't get money. You know, the federal government isn't paying money for scalps anymore. So like it's implied that there's this kind of intrinsic distrust and dislike for Indians, Native Americans. And so when Red Harvest comes in, there's like that undercurrent of he's probably not going to like this guy. Mm-hmm. And so him defending that Indian against another Indian was just an interesting kind of brought the whole thing full circle, and how like, you know, he at first went after, you know, tried to kill these guys. Now he's defending one.
Yeah. Gosh, was there anything else about this movie that kind of stand out to me? Oh, once we get like the final shot of this movie, here's the weird thing: you get the final shot, and horrible CGI, like the crosses and all that stuff in the field. Did you tell that was a CGI shot? That was a CGI shot. I was like, that looks horrible.
I bet you anything they kind of threw that in at the end. Guys, I got an idea. And there was like, all right, we've got a week to do this and $30,000. Let's get this done.
Yeah. One thing though, I wanted to comment about the about the huge showdown. You don't actually you don't have like two showdowns or two or three different showdowns or gunfight scenes. It's everything's all leading up to that moment. It doesn't.
Yeah.
There's nothing else there. There's no like. A first shootout, and the bad guys retreat, but they secretly come back. There's none of that. It's all leading up to these. It's all leading up to that ending. Oh, I love the editing where you get the bell, ringing, and then it fades to one character from black, another character black. You remember that shot? Those shots right there. It was like the towers ringing, and then you get ding, and then you see Chris Pratt ding, and then that
was a masterful moment.
Oh my gosh,
they did a great job with that.
Perfect right there. It sets that whole thing so well.
Yeah.
And
I think if anything of the things that were done magnificently in this film was the editing and the cinematography.
Yeah. And the action too, and that's going to take us.
Action was fantastic.
Yeah.
That goes without saying.
Oh my gosh!
But the editing and cinematography were fantastic.
Oh my gosh! And the action. I mean, like for like a 21st century western. I mean, you don't want to go over the top. I mean, it doesn't go for like Tarantino, that kind of glorified 70s style.
Buckets of blood everywhere.
No,
yeah.
It's very not tamed, but I mean it's brutal. I think it kind of reminds me more of like Coen Brothers violence. Like No Country for Old Men or True Grit. It's much more realistic. I think that's the word.
Yes.
It's a much more realistic. It's not stylized.
Tarantino goes for the shock factor. Let's just put that out there. Tarantino is like, how much blood can I put into one scene? I feel like every movie he does, every single scene, like if there's just not buckets of blood going everywhere, it's not a Tarantino film. But this one, I think, was a nice cross between that modern, violent, what's the word I'm looking for? Modern stomach for violence.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
And the old Westerns. Because, the old Westerns, let's be honest, the deaths were kind of cheesy a lot.
It was a theatrical kind of death,
Yeah, exactly. He goes, ah! And then he rolls over and there's nothing on him.
Or there's like a little white thing, a little speck of blood or something like that.
Yeah. It's like, hey, look, someone got some red dye. And then, this was more of the modern aesthetic, along with being, if we can put it this way, a little bit more classy.
Yeah, there you go. Was there anything else you wanted to bring about the movie? Was there like a theme or like a theme, or maybe like what do you think was the film's overall message that it was trying to communicate? Because I feel like this one is lacking the message that the previous films had, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, what do you think the message of the previous film was?
The previous two films, in my opinion, were essentially about sacrifice against, or fighting against the great odds. And I think that carries into this film, but I think it's more about, these were gunfighters who honestly, because they've adapted to that lifestyle, there's really no other purpose to them other than to inevitably die. It's at one point in time, if you live the life of a gunslinger, you're going to eventually bite the bullet. And I think, and that even goes for like Kurosawa's film. It was all about Ronin. It was about these samurais, who were trying to find purpose, trying to find meaning, and they found the purpose that they were looking for in this small little community.
Yeah, which I think that was definitely what was brought out in the original Magnificent Seven. Mm-hmm. That final line that Yul Brynner gets out.
Yes.
What was it?
Yeah.
Basically, something along the lines of, this is kind of we're
the farmers won. The farmers won. We lost. We'll always lose.
Yeah. Yes. That was a great line. Yeah. I feel like that was present in the newer one, but it wasn't as. It was more subtle. And I feel like with some of the lines that that Skarsgård had, I felt like there was kind of an undertone of anti-capitalism. There are some remarks about him comparing democracy and capitalism and how like this is just inevitable and this is how it happens. And, you just need to get with the program kind of thing. Kind of portraying capitalism as the evil. That was kind of an undercurrent. I don't know. Maybe for me, I guess that it was more self-sacrifice and loyalty.
Yeah.
In the face of great odds, but also, one of the final lines of the film was her talking about how these guys had sacrificed for something that wasn't theirs. I felt like that kind of took the whole movie and summed it up nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you kind of said right there, I think that whole, like, the farmers one we lost, I think that it's kind of there. It's just not said. Washington doesn't have that final line, which I think he should have had something there. But it's not, but it is what it is.
It was funny for me. Like after watching the original one, it was like these are almost two completely different films.
Yeah, made from completely different perspectives and Hollywood mindsets.
Yeah, kind of same undercurrent with each one. But yeah, it was just interesting because again, going back to what I said earlier, it's 1960s culture versus 2016 culture.
Yeah,
and how vastly different 50 years can make.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, very different time. We were the John F. Kennedy. I mean, that was we were about to take the first leap into the space race. I mean, that was just around the corner. I mean, Vietnam was on the verge. I'm just trying to remember. I'm not really good with my Vietnam history. I think America's participation was either had occurred or was about to occur. One of those.
That didn't happen until later in the 60s.
Okay, 60s. Okay, but I think this movie, but the Vietnam War conflict was happening at that point in time. So I think that film.
No, not 1960.
Oh gosh, I just know that thing was just going on.
Well, you had the nuclear thing with Cuba.
Okay, yes, that's true.
All that stuff going on. But as someone pointed out, that whole period was kind of, it was post World War II. We'd won. We were recovering. Everyone else was recovering. So there was that hopefulness to everything. Like we can do anything we set our minds to. And nowadays it's just kind of like, oh man, we're so screwed up. It's this as my dad liked to say, this navel gazing of, oh man, we're so messed up and we can't do anything right kind of feel.
Yeah.
And you can see that in these films.
Sure. Definitely. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But so yeah, Ian, what are your final thoughts on The Magnificent Seven, and do you give it a recommend?
I enjoyed it. It was a good action film. Not for young children. It's a little too intense for that. But I would definitely recommend it. It'd be a good date movie. I'll put it that way. Something for everybody, or a good safe date movie. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend. Just be discerning.
Okay. Yeah. I give it actually a slight recommend. I actually say, though, please, audiences, check out Magnificent Seven. And if you have 4 or 5 hours to spare, check out Seven Samurai first before you see the new Magnificent Seven film. See if you want, doesn't matter, but I mean, at least I think you should see where this film is coming from, in my opinion. I would recommend the 2 other films before I would recommend the new one. But no, I mean, it was a great Western. I think it was great to finally see a good Western on the big screen, because we don't get Westerns very often. I mean,
we really don't.
No, I mean, last year's Hateful Eight, got a lot of critical praise, but we haven't had a lot of Westerns, and the only recent ones that come to my mind are 3:10 to Yuma, which was great, True Grit, Django Unchained. There was one with Viggo Mortensen called Appaloosa, I think it's called, or Appaloosa.
Alapusa.
Is that what it's called? It's got him and Ed
Something
Harris.
like that.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, I think this one kind of, I think, can definitely join the ranks of like some of the best westerns of the 21st century. I would say so.
I agree.
Yeah. So, okay then. So that's it, folks, for our review of The Magnificent Seven. This is episode 96. Couldn't get it to 97 to fit Magnificent Seven to 97. Couldn't.
So close.
So close. Didn't work out. But, Ian, where can people find more of your work?
All over the place. I'm focusing more on the worship leading stuff right now. So the music. So I'm hoping to post more music on SoundCloud. Look up Ian Maphet on SoundCloud. And then you can find my company, Apologia Productions, on Facebook. You can look on our website, apologiaproductions.com. And then my YouTube channel, Ian Maphet. Haven't posted much lately, but I'm hoping to soon. I've got some stuff coming up that I'm pretty excited about.
Okay.
So,
great.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing. Okay, folks, again, I said this is our 96th episode. We are technically 4 episodes away from 100.
Woo!
So, yes, we are almost there. So, we're still planning things. We don't have a solid date yet. However, as soon as we get to 97, get ready. It's coming. We'll make the announcements official, so stay tuned, everybody, and get ready, because we got some pretty big. I do have a big surprise, if things work out, And yes, I know I've said that before with other things, but this is a solid thing. I'm not going to say what it is, but we'll see what happens, and so hopefully we can get that going, and maybe if we can do a live audience event, you can join us for that as well. Also, I do want to say that it looks like Story to Screen will be helping out with the film festival, the local the Fairhope Film Festival in where I currently live. I've actually approached the office for some volunteer work, and we're going to be meeting, and I'm going to be helping them to promote the festival, which will be in November. So keep an eye on the Facebook and Twitter pages for event info. One last thing as well, you can please, audiences, subscribe on iTunes. Please leave us a review. Also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We are now officially on Stitcher. So for all of you Stitcher followers or Stitcher fans, we are officially on that as well. So please check us out on that. And we've also made some huge updates for the website, so to make it look a lot more cooler and a lot more neat. So please check us out on there as well. So anyway, folks, I am Chris, and joining me tonight again is Ian Maphet. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good night. Cheers.
Peace.